I'm Dream Queen. You're in the cab with me. Thanks for rolling once again. Right here on KMRD LP, Madrid, New Mexico. We're going to get into the Kahlil Gibran. I'm going to see if I can hold on to all the messages that are flying through. I want to talk about children as possessions, which they are not. I want to talk about chapter 2, all about love. I want to talk about how we are all somebody's child. If you become someone's portal or vessel, and when you raise a child, do not forget your own inner child. Wake up and live. Life doesn't stop, and you still have an opportunity to fulfill all your dreams. Just stay present. Listen to a little Eckhart Tolle last night too, in between set lists. All right, I couldn't stand his voice at first, but he's got some new stuff out that I found very helpful. Anyway, so you're gonna be feeling me be in the moment, exploring more of the now, being present. So we're gonna ride the message out together as we always do. Stumbled upon this tune last night. Jane Siberry, K.D. Lang, Calling All Angels. What a beautiful song. What a beautiful song. We're trying, we're hoping, we're hurting, we're loving, we're crying, we're calling, because we're not sure how it all goes. I thought about that song when I picked that song last night because there are all these trite songs about children. There are all these ranging from worshipful to resentful songs about parents. And there are a handful of songs that contain some good advice. There's one song that's really my favorite cover or adaptation of Kahlil Gibran's words on children. That's a version done by Sweet Honey and the Rock. I thought I'd play that. That was my first encounter with Kahlil Gibran's work when I was about 16. I was a member of the Gay and Lesbian Chorus of Washington, D.C. I grew up in D.C., and I knew I was gay from a very young age. Puberty, you start liking who you like. And I was active in the queer community from the beginning. And I have a religious background, very loving family. Loving in the sense of they did the best they could. And I grew up thinking I was loved. We'll get into the bell hooks again. In the Cab Radio at Mixcloud.com. You can listen to our series where we read bell hooks all about love. I digress. Because I understood the importance of community. Okay? It was not because I felt any other way than I was a gay outcast and I needed to find community that was outside of my school or my home. And being who I am, which I think I did, I picked up a reference. I don't remember what it was. Maybe I talk about my problems on here as a troubled youth. Self-esteem and whatnot, and self-worth. So I called the youth crisis hotline. And I was like, I think I'm gay. And I don't know what to do. And I also have these other negative feelings. And they referred me to a youth group in DC that served youth from 13 to, or it was 14 to 18 at that time, or 21. And I was turning 13. So I would become their youngest member. SMILE, Sexual Minority Youth Assistance League. And they assisted me. And that's where I learned to be a member of a community organization. And this is 1992-ish, 91. So there wasn't as much visibility as there is now as far as positive support. These organizations were still growing, and a lot of people were still in the closet in my school. A lot of people my own age were still masking really hard. And it's painful because I've been born a person who can deal in as much truth as I can. I don't say only because I'm also human. However, I was not given the luxury to really hide because of my stature, and that I wanted to present myself comfortably and authentically in life. So from a young age. And so our facilitators are grown folks who help counsel us. And it changed my life and helped me. And I met peers and adults who cared because these adults were obviously much older than us in the 90s. So I'm talking about people who grew up in the 50s and 60s, queer. And they had the pain of hiding. And they wanted to help us so we didn't have to live that life. And so this choir, I met the choir through my work in the community. We did the pride marches. I spoke to local newspapers, as everybody wanted to talk to the gay youth. AIDS was ravaging people. And it was a time. It was a time to be a young queer person. Now is a time to be a young queer person. Okay. Black trans women are still dying disproportionately at higher rates than anyone else. Being a femme is very dangerous, has always been. Being butch has been dangerous and found me in a lot of fights. Our trans youth, our non-binary youth, all of our questioning youth need support. And so this wasn't in my notes. Y'all know how it goes. I don't even know why I bother sitting up at night. I think it's just so I could gain the learning. And then I could just come in here and speak off the cuff. But it's really important that we show up for marginalized people and remember what our lives were like in the before times. COVID is my before times. That's the new before times. So the before times in the 90s and the ancient old days of the 50s and 60s and 70s, and if you still have it in you, just remember what it was like, not just for yourself, but for the young people who don't have a physical frame of reference for what may be coming down the pike right now. I'm also going to call to state governments. I was given a little ray of hope when I remember that we have the power to make as many laws as possible on the state level. And I don't know how you feel about how the New Mexico, the things we voted for turn out, some initiatives and some judges, and I think many things didn't have a choice. We didn't really do much. But these court people are really important, and I hope everybody starts to realize that, especially as we're living under the shadow of a malicious national Supreme Court. We have to remember that we have power to keep New Mexico safe for marginalized people. That includes the poor, the poors, of which I am one. So, Kahlil Gibran, first introduced to him when I was a little queer kid in Washington, D.C., struggling to be out of the closet, hanging out with a bunch of old people because my young peers many were scared. Others, there were some of us, we were strong, boy. We did what we did and we showed up. Vogue came out in the 90s. That made a big difference for us in high school. I went to an art school. And these little bits of visibility really help. So thanks everyone for being here and sitting with these thoughts. Just tell somebody, or don't even have to say it, but just be in yourself that you see the person. And I really got called out, and I'll tell you the truth. I got called out among other people on a Facebook post from a very, very dear old friend of mine. Family, right? Friend, family. And she called everybody out of, I have a trans son and nobody's asking him how he feels right now. And I was like, right on. Everything on everybody's plate. I can make excuses all doggone day. I did my phone calls on Wednesday morning and I just couldn't get to everybody. This homie I haven't really talked to in a long, long time. Black woman, blended family, all the things. And so I appreciate making this connection on the show today because I want to share the story that whoever you didn't get to reach out to, or if you see somebody calling out for a little bit of support, a little bit of help, or if somebody's gone missing, disappeared into oblivion, check on your friends. Check on your empath friends. Check on your marginalized friends. I know I shouldn't have to say this, but I do have to say this. And I think we're all doing it in fits and spurts. We have a very long time ahead of us, but take that time. Okay? All right, I told you I was going to talk some more. I didn't really know how much more, but I hope you got your pages out. All right. We're going to quickly read on children. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm Dream Queen. Show's called In the Cab. We've begun a book club in the past year and a couple of months, and we're looking at The Prophet right now. I will just do a brief recap to as far as we've come. We've met Al-Mustafa, who is the chosen one, as per his name, a sage and a traveler. And he lived in this town called Orphalese for 12 years. He knows it's time for him to go now. He's looked out on the horizon and here comes his ship through the mist. So he leaves his hermitage and begins the journey down to the seawall to await the ship. Well, on the way, all the people in the village, town, small city, whatever, they're all out working their plowshares, their wine presses, doing the day's labor because it's the harvest time. It's the reaping month. Okay, so everybody's out there reaping and doing work. And then word goes across. Y'all know how that goes here. Word is out for you down the street. His ship's coming. He's leaving us. So they drop their tools and they go out to meet him. And he's crying a little bit, a little tear on his eye. Here comes Almitra, the seeress out of the temple, who's the first to have met Al-Mustafa when he came. Her name means hope and honor. And she says, hey. She comes out of the temple. They meet in the square. And she says to him, in front of all the people in the square, how she knows that he's been observing everyone. Now, therefore, disclose us to ourselves and tell us all that has been shown you of that which is between birth and death. Disclose us to ourselves. And he answered, People of Orphalese, of what can I speak, save of that which is even now moving within your souls? So he's saying, I can't tell you, it's not something you already know. But since we're here waiting for my boat, sure, why not? Ask me some questions. I did that. I added that part. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. Kahlil Gibran, the prophet on children. Okay. So, spent a lot more time telling my personal story, so I'm shuffling in my mind how much time we're going to spend on which parts here. I have not birthed children. I helped raise some for a time. So I'm not speaking this on an authority as a parent. I don't believe Kahlil Gibran had children. I am a child of a person. I'm an adult child of a person, as are we all. Therefore, we have a perspective on the relationship. And in my hosting this show, I'm not here to tell anybody what to think. We're just offering perspectives and ways of thought, little roads. That's why it's called In the Cab. We in the truck driving along. We in the taxi, however you want to say, okay? We just riding along, chit-chatting. InTheCabRadio@gmail.com, InTheCabRadio at Instagram. You want to chit-chat, shoot me a note. Okay, but we're just chit-chatting. And we have the book club to invite other people and other people's ideas into the conversation who are respectable, like Bell Hooks and Martin Luther King. So what started it all was all about love. So I'm going to refer back to the original chapter as we break apart and dissect on children a little bit. Just a couple pointers. Number 1, your children are not your children. People are not possessions. They're just not. They're not. No matter what you've decided to glean from the Bible, if you're a fundamentalist, even as those texts contradict each other, I looked into some things. I'm not going to go there because this isn't quite church. But people are not possessions. So your children are not your children. That's point one. That's the leading line in this. We cannot overlook the placement of that line. It's where it all started. And where we all started was with Bell Hooks' All About Love. And I'm going to just refer to chapter 2. My notes are on page 19. If you have the bell hooks, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. I'm going to read it to you. Chapter 2 is called Justice, Childhood Love Lessons. And in it, Bell Hooks' opening line on page 17 is, "We learn about love in childhood." Indeed we do. Gibran opens the prophet. The first question that Al-Mitra asked him was, "Speak to us of love." Gibran says, "Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed." Bell Hooks' All About Love. She talks about children being really disproportionately abused and devoid of justice. She writes on page 19, "They are the true victims of intimate terrorism, in that they have no collective voice and no rights. They remain the property of parenting adults to do with as they will." On page 20, she goes on to say, "We all know that irrespective of class or race, other adults rarely intervene to question or challenge what their peers are doing with, quote unquote, their children." Page 22, she talks about her father's abuse, physical abuse on her and her mother. The abuse of being, I'm sorry, I don't know how to put this and not use the same word twice in one sentence. I'm going to say just the horrible fallout that comes along with being physically or mentally or emotionally abused and then being told you're being loved. And it becomes complicated because our parents are people who were parented by people who were parented by people who were parented by people on down the line. And some New Age people will talk about generational trauma, generational, and it is passed down like this because we each learn how to love from our parent. And when we grow up and find things lacking, we are tasked with doing that reparenting work ourselves. And that goes back to what Scott Peck and Bell Hooks say is a mix of ingredients of care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, trust, and open and honest communication. The commitment to one's spiritual growth. That's self-love. We have to do all that work and survive in capitalism. And heal some of the worst of the wounds, or learn to live with that pain, right? It's a lot. And as we grow up as children, we grow into these adults and we have to look at what's going on here. Bell Hooks writes, "From these experiences with my father, I learned about the abuse of power. By physically hitting my mother and me, he effectively stopped us from reacting to his humiliation of us. He stopped us from reacting to his humiliation of us. We ceased to protest his violations of our boundaries and his ignoring our sense of being individuals, with his ignoring our sense of being individuals with needs, demands, and rights of our own." Do you gain access? as a young boy to your rights when you turn 18 or 21. As a woman, as a queer person, as a daughter or a sister, do you ever gain access to your rights as an individual or a human? Just asking. Point 2 is that Gibran says, they are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. There are greater forces at work here than we all know. I said that earlier. That's on everything, not just politics. If we go back to On Love, Gibran establishes love as a divine force at work. How he shakes us and sifts us, needs us, and then assigns us to his sacred fire. Gibran says, all these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. And a few lines later, he writes, when you love, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, I am in the heart of God. Even the most religious and fundamentalist people here, I think, could agree that if you subdue to God, you don't have any right over your children's entire lives, right? I'm not fatalistic. I don't believe that everybody has like a fate or a story that's going to play out no matter what. I wish, because I'd make this really great story for myself. But it's about the journey and what we do on our journey, what we teach our children to do, what is right, what we consider right or wrong. We have to release at some point an individual into the world free from our own expectation and desire, and give over to the desire of life. Whatever's going to happen out here in Earth School, we all have a part to play. Like, here comes Gollum, okay? Why didn't Bilbo get rid of Gollum? I don't know. Not Bilbo, Frodo. I swear to God, if I was Sam, right? But Gandalf had a very good point. He had a part to play. We're here with no matter how you feel about these elections and things like this and that, for good or ill, we're all here together in this situation, and everybody has a part to play because we all still have, I think, lessons to learn. Can't go around setting examples of willy-nilly destruction. If things are going on that's bigger than us, how you gonna show up? You just gonna, I'm not gonna use the word sheep. I was just gonna ask if you're gonna hang out and chew grass while the world happens around you. That's a possibility. That might be your part to keep the rest of us here trying to get more self-aware than we were yesterday, because you never really get there. So part 3 is that your children, they come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. Women who bear children are indeed a certain type of portal. Trans folk who bear children are a certain kind of portal. You are creating a little meat suit inside with genetic materials from the scientific things that make that happen. And then it attains consciousness. And then it comes through you and into the world. That's the birds and the bees. But then it leaves. It hears the call. And then we go back to point one, the release. So you give them your love. You house their bodies. You try to feed their souls and their minds, right? Paraphrasing here. And then the audacity to leave you alone for their own self-fulfilling destiny. Again, not saying fatalistic, that the old Greek ladies are sitting around there with a loom, having planned out little Johnny's journey. They hear something that you can't imagine. Not only because you're not in them, but because you have no idea of the infinite. The audacity. And that's where the abuse comes in, to try to mold and keep something that belongs only to life. And to digress and say, you may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. Thank the Lord. Can you tell somebody again the slogan? To return to a past that we must evolve away from is not going to work. We can't bring back last year's harvest. We renew. We take the old and we make it new then. And with what intention? With what intention? That's up to the future. I don't know where it's going to go. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite. He bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Kahlil Gibran told us 2 poems ago that love is God, God is love, and life is what we're here to fulfill. Love fulfills only itself. So let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, he also loves the bow that is stable. You take heart that you are also an arrow. Each one of us are an arrow and a bow. And we should have comfort in the knowledge that we are in equity with our children. God has purpose for us equally. That purpose is within us. We can feel where we're supposed to go, hear what we're here to do. Whether we want to do it, find it easy, face the challenge, whatever. We're going to get into some other aspects of Gibran's philosophy. He's got several lanes of study, from Christianity to Islam to Sufism to psychological thought. And in my studies of him, there's been some questions raised about reincarnation, the journey of the soul. When we get to the very end of the Prophet, which at the rate we're going, even though it's a little book, I didn't think I'd be taking a day for each piece. And at the very end of the book, the very end, it's not a spoiler. It's just something I want to give because, we go back and forth with religious thought. But I have to put this little nugget in because it was brought to my attention in my research. Gibran says to the people there, "Forget not that I shall come back to you. A little while, and my longing shall gather dust and foam for another body. A little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me." So I am very, very much into theology and philosophy. Y'all know that. That's why we're here doing the show. Like, this is just what's happening right now. It's all coming to blossom in front of you. So I'm going to tell you, it's my understanding as well. Not that we have a specific task like the movies make it seem, but there's all kinds of activity going on here. And there's a song, "Death is Not the End." You know, I think we know that one way or the other. Everybody knows, you know, except the scientists, but they'll find out. They'll find out. They're always the last to find out, those funny scientists. That we go on. I shall not go on any further. I am going to hang up the microphone for the week. And I love y'all. Thanks for letting me go on. Go to Indicap Radio, Mixcloud, and Instagram, and you can find the archives. Okay? I love you so much. Keep your head up, child of the universe.